Okay, all good. Is that better? All good?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
All right, awesome.
Bo will do the closing prayer from here.
To be fair, seeing the light, I get very You're all good?
Yeah.
All right, cool. See you, Ziggy.
See you, Zashi.
Well, good morning, gentlemen. It's just ticked over to 7:30 daylight saving time, 6:30 here in Brisbane. Welcome from wherever you're tuning in from around the country. You might be at home, in your office, out exercising, commuting, or in the boardroom there in Sydney in PEP. If you're on the camera and you're in a state to have your camera on, then please do so. Adds to the vibe and the sense of fellowship that we enjoy. My name is Dave Pitt. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to our National Men's Fellowship meeting. There are men joining from around the country, and so yeah, welcome. It's great to have you. We do hope that you enjoy our time together this morning and that you benefit from the discussion. In a moment, Oliver will explain the purpose of our meeting and introduce our guest speaker. Then Rob will conduct an interview that will go for around 30 minutes. After that time, there's a chance to interact with our guest speaker, to ask questions. I encourage you to do so. If you're on Zoom, by using the raised hand function, you'll be asked to unmute yourself, and then you can ask your question. If you're in the boardroom in PEP, you can work that out locally. Questions are a great way to interact and to enjoy this experience. So please make the most of that time. And we'll aim to finish the meeting in around an hour's time. But for now, over to you, Oliver.
Thanks, Dave. Well, I returned from a 5-week trip to Europe, so I'm still in that zone of jet lag. So I mean, quite likely say things that I'm going to regret later on. But I'd like to start off unequivocally welcome you all to our meeting, and I'd like to particularly welcome those online and those in different cities, as well as the folks here in Sydney. It's really good to see you all. And we are, as a group of men, we are here because we're friends. And this is about friendship, getting to know each other, and through that, becoming aware of our own lives and the lives of others, things that are going on, good, bad, indifferent. And through that, growing together. And the way we meet, we have speakers like Peter this morning. And the reason we do that is that we want to hear from these guys about their lives and how they've lived their lives, the ups and the downs, in order to establish the question, does faith in God have anything to do with life? There's a lot of people who think that that's all about going to church on Sundays. We're a non-denominational group, and we don't really engage in discussions about churches or anything like that. People here who believe, some people don't believe. But through our speakers, we begin to get an insight into what the life of faith can be about. And that's what we're doing this morning. We welcome you to this. If you really enjoy this, this funny meeting early on in the morning, we urge you to come back, bring some friends, and we do a lot of other things besides have these meetings. So that's something we'd like to welcome you to as well. Peter, great of you to come this morning and speak to us. I'm afraid I don't know a great deal about your background, except what I've been able to glean from LinkedIn and from what I've been told by other people. But I gather that you are a serial entrepreneur by I think that's probably what I would say from having watched your or seen some of the data around you, that you're very creative. You've established a marketing presence. You're a financial planner. And as such, I imagine you get involved in people's lives in a very, very deep way, because there's nothing closer to a person than his wallet. So, I think that we're going to hear some very interesting things, especially from a man of faith like yourself, who perhaps looks at this world of wealth creation and wealth management differently. So, folks, with that, I'm going to hand this over to our interviewer, Rob, and welcome.
Thank you, Oliver. Peter, that's not really the name you go by. And Zig's not really your name either. What's going on?
No, Rob. Well, look, firstly, thank you for having me, everyone. Oliver, Rob, the whole crew, and good to see, the guys online and in the at the board table there, the big table. I love it when men get together, and I love it when men get together to talk about life. Typically, we men are not very good at that, and so when you have a group like this where you can share and you can become vulnerable and you can talk about life and just say, well, stuff happens, life happens. And so let's share it, let's encourage each other, let's be real about it, and let's talk about how we can do this thing called life better and together. So yes, Rob, getting to my name, my birth name is Pandelis Tsiglopoulos. So with that, of course, typical Greek name. And so, of course, when I grew up in the western suburbs of Melbourne, of course, when I got to primary school was good. They're happy to go with Pandelis Tsiglopoulos, but you get to high school and the game changed. And all my mates from high school are either dead or in jail. And so when I got there, it was like, mate, what's your name? And I said, Pandelis Tsiglopoulos. And they went, Pandelis, forget that, you're Ziggy. Now, if you knew the high school that I went to, that was another F word. It wasn't forget that, right? It was, right, forget that, you're Ziggy. And so Ziggy stuck.
Good. All right. Now, Ziggy, you're a founder and CEO of the financial services firm 3P, which I understand stands for Passion, People, and Prosper. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so when I set it up 10 years ago, Rob, I wanted to set up a multidisciplinary practice that that was unique in the sense that it had a purpose. I think more and more these days people want to know what you stand for as opposed to what you can do. And so I thought I didn't want to call it Ziggy and Associates or Ziggy Wealth or something like that. And so after a lot of sort of, counsel from friends and, I guess sort of praying as well, if faith comes into it, it ended up being, okay, well, let's go with 3 Ps. And what does it stand for? Well, we have a passion for people to prosper. And we have a passion for people to prosper when it comes to the finances. And so the aim was to have a multidisciplinary practice so that we could help clients prosper in their finances. So 10 years later, this is what we have. So we have my background is in accounting and tax, right? So I started with financial planning, accounting and tax, finance broking, property, and now we have a legal practice as well. So from a finance perspective, we have the sort of the 5 pillars in that, set up. And now in order to help clients prosper in other areas, we have a 5-year plan, which, I guess is going to be part of our discussion I'm going to share with you this morning.
Yeah, good. And you're also a media person. You're regularly on radio and television. What's that about? What do you say?
Yeah, there's a group in Melbourne called Positive Media. They run the largest community radio station in Australia called 89.9 The Light. And so I've been heavily involved with them since they got their community radio license back it was around 2000, 2001. And so what's happened over the years that station, the station is it's simulcast. Channel 9 News is simulcast on Light FM, and so they have an arrangement there. And so there's a lot of exposure for Light FM, and their aim is making a positive difference in the lives of people in Melbourne. And so the values and everything resonates with 3P. And so when, as I got more involved with them in terms of sort of helping, they're funding them and doing a variety of things, they got me on a few times. They asked me initially, got me on the phone and said, "Oh, why do you contribute to Light FM?" And thus begun the discussion. And so, they've had me on air a few times sharing, my journey and my depression and how I've, worked through that. But also as a result, because of my accounting and tax and financial planning background, I'm their go-to finance guy. So they get me on from time to time. We get on and we have a bit of a laugh and have a talk about finances. I also used to interview people on a show on Foxtel. The show was called GRTV, and it was formerly Greek TV. It wasn't in Greek or anything, but it was it showcased Greek culture. And I did interviews like Ross Wilson from Daddy Call. His wife is Greek, and the Gogglebox Girls, and so then they got me to host the show, and so I've had a bit of fun with that. That's in a bit of a hiatus at the moment. We're looking at bringing it back, so I love that sort of stuff.
Yeah, cool. And you've written a book, Money Does Grow on Trees. Can you tell us what that's about?
Money does grow on trees, and when I get asked, then can you give us the tree that it relates to? I said, look, I'm from the western suburbs of Melbourne. It's actually a plant, and you smoke it. So if you want to make money from this tree, you've got to, grow it and sell it. No, I'm only joking. And so the Money Does Grow on Trees. It's a 7-step financial plan. I've got the structure to my second book now, which is going to be called Plan to Prosper. And as we go along, I want the sort of coming books to be around finance, but also be around, what we're really talking about, which is about wealth and what wealth is, and how do we get that? How do we combine that into life?
Yeah. Okay. So, is there a favorite question people ask you? Like, how much do I need to retire? Is that what everybody asks? Or
well, it's funny you say that, because as the last 30 years of working as an accountant, as a financial planner, I found that people make mistakes when it comes to their finances. They have problems. The problem is they don't have clarity, they don't have direction, they don't have a plan, they don't know who to speak to and who to trust. And as a result, they they make mistakes like, jumping on Google or going on YouTube and trying to get advice from there, or they get it from their friends or family, or they just procrastinate, or they make knee-jerk, decisions in terms of their finances. But I think people's secret fear, and when clients come to us, the secret fear is, am I going to have enough? And so that is the starting point of the discussion. And Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. So it's actually a good place to begin.
Yeah, okay. And I guess you have a concept of complete wealth. Well, how would you describe that?
Yeah, look, if you go to our website, and everything, this is entrenched in the business. We talk about it started, Rob, in terms of, well, what is wealth? And so when we talk about wealth, it's typically around, it's typically finance related. And so having gone through, what I went through and sort of come out of it and started 3P, that was an important part of the journey. And so wealth for me then became focusing on three areas. Finances is one of them, right? Want to achieve financial independence. That's key. Second one is to have sustainable relationships, great relationships. And the third one is to have a healthy lifestyle. And our view then is that if you work on those three areas, then that unlocks true wealth. And if you work on those three areas, then you minimize the risk of something going wrong, or certainly if things go wrong in one of those three areas, the damage won't be as great. So in our view, that those three areas, if you focus on those three areas, it unlocks true wealth. And so for us, that's the 3P formula.
Very good. Okay. Let's go back a bit. Tell us about your childhood, because I think that's an interesting part of your story.
Yeah, my childhood. Well, look, Greek family. Parents came over with nothing, as a lot of the migrants did. Dad became a bus driver, then a truck driver for many years. Mum was a cleaner. Grew up in the western suburbs of Melbourne. So, parents were great. Parents were. It's funny when we talk about goals and objectives and ours in our generations, right? Because my parents' goals and objectives, like many migrants, was just to get over here, own their own home, put their kids through education. For them, that was success.
Yeah.
And if I look at my parents now, who are in their 80s, own their own home, are on the age pension, don't have much else, they're successful.
Mm-hmm.
They're successful because they've seen their two kids grow up. My brother's a doctor. I obviously went and did accounting and tax, so they're very proud, and they can die happy, in that regard. So mum and dad were that. They were fantastic. Greek family, there's lots of food, lots of people around all the time. Mum and dad were very conservative, though. Dad was especially strict, and I grew up without a TV. I grew up without having a birthday. Wasn't allowed to go to birthday parties. Desperately wanted to play soccer, loved soccer, wanted to play at the local soccer club, but wasn't allowed. So there were, migrants, Greeks could be either very closed or very open. And my parents tend to be sort of very closed. And I think a part of that was the fact that this was a new country. They were, they're probably scared of what impact it could have on their kids. There was the faith aspect. We used to attend a church that was very similar in terms of their beliefs, in terms of their conservativeness. And so, when you overlay some fear with some religious beliefs, that tells you sort of got to keep away from people and look inwardly, so to speak. I don't think that's a healthy mix. And so that was the environment that I grew up in, which was pretty tough, because I used to see, friends and family used to go on holidays, and mates used to, play club soccer. So some of that was tough. So yeah.
And I mean, what did you resent your parents? I mean, was family relationships good, or how did it play out? It must have been really constricting, that.
It was, Rob, but for a period when you don't know what you don't know, it's, you just go along. And then I think that realization at, getting to the age of sort of 40, which is 12 years ago now, getting to the age of 40, it was just like I started to realize a few things. And by this point, I'd been, got married, we got 2 kids, had a great wife, but it just got to the point where just I've lost a lot of years. I've lost a lot of potential. I've missed out on some normal things that kids should be able to do. And so I think that played on my mind and had a part to play as I, sort of that 38 to 40 as I entered those depression years, if you like. And
okay.
there's a whole discussion around
Yeah,
that.
we'll come to that. But church was a big part of your family growing up, wasn't it? It wasn't just the fear of the unknown new country, but as you said, it was a faith aspect there too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mum and dad. Look, we went to a great church. It was a great community. And look, as I said, I got older and we sort of, didn't want to do that anymore, outgrew that. But growing up, it was a happy childhood. There was no issues from that respect. And mum and dad loved us to death, right? And intentions were good. Their love was great. And there was certainly no, look, I got to admit, there was some resentment early on, when I was going through all this. There was some which was like, why would you act like this? But you've just got to forgive and move on and just say, well, look, that was what they knew at the time. Wasn't the best, but hey, I love them like no other. And that was part of the journey that also I need to go through in maturing and growing. So, that the church was an important part. Foundations were laid. In spiritual foundations, moral foundations, values was just, absolutely part of my journey and important, very important.
Okay, cool. So you've go through high school, university was accounting, and then working in accounting services. What did you like about that?
I like the fact that I could engage with clients and talk to them about the planning side of it. I didn't really like the compliance side of accounting and tax, and I was very fortunate at one practice, which was my longest stint, that was 8 years. And the accounting practice there was, at the time, BRW's fastest growing accounting practice, and I was very fortunate to be a part of it. We used to look after franchises all over Australia. In particular, there was a few, but the biggest one was the Bob Jane T-Mart system, and we used to do all their accounting and tax, and we used to do monthly reports every single month for 120 stores around the country. And so my role was to oversee a team of accountants in the Melbourne office. We had a team of bookkeepers Australia-wide, and back then some was electronic, if you like, but all that bookkeeping was done manually, sent into the office, and within 10 days, within sort of 14 days of the end of the month, every franchisee would have their management report, which was talked about the gross profit, the net profit, margins on particular tires. Great report, absolutely unique at the time. So that was lots of fun, and that's what I loved. I loved the aspect of speaking to the clients about their monthly report, because they'd have these monthly meetings, and I used to really engage with the South Australian clients. So I was over there once a month, and I'd spend 3 or 4 days just seeing one back to back, and I just absolutely loved it. The compliance side I hated. Sitting and doing a tax return and doing this, it was like you can value add in terms of minimizing tax and strategy, but as the laws got tighter, there was less that you can do, so it just became more compliant as opposed to anything else.
I'm getting the sense it's because there wasn't much people interaction in that part of the
Correct, sitting in front of a computer.
Okay, now you mentioned it earlier, and you've been quite fearless about talking about your struggle with depression. Could you tell us about that whole episode?
Yeah, I think the way I entered depression, if you like, for want of a better phrase, is there was a whole range of things going on. It was almost like the perfect storm. And part of it, I think, was challenging or trying to understand, you know, my life and my faith and where I was heading, my goals and objectives. At this point, I hadn't gone out on my own, and I was trying to work out what I wanted to do. Early on, when we started a family, my goal was to not to be self-employed, because I knew that I would run it really hard, and I knew that there would be a sacrifice, and I knew that it would be the family. I didn't want that to happen. So for 10 years, I stayed employed, if you like, and had great flexibility around that. But then, you know, reaching the age of 40, you see some of your peers have gone out on their own, and you know, you start to think, maybe I should have, you know, I could have. No, I know that I've done the right thing, but it's still. So that was part of it, the growing up and the faith, and the sort of, you know, not being able to take opportunities and sort of enjoy a normal life. I had a great life, you know, I'm not begrudging anything, but, you know, just some normal stuff. There was, there's some stuff happening on my wife's side of the family that sort of put some tension between myself and my wife. And so it all came together. And if you're the type of person where I'm a very emotional type person, I mean, I'm Greek, I hug, I kiss, you know, I do a whole range of things. And so, but as that type of character, you know, you can let your thoughts really run, you know, and unless you capture them and bring them back and take control of them, and if you do let them run, you start believing lies, and you start to go down that track. And so I think I know that's what happened for me. And so I let all this tension happen, and rather than just sort of work through the issues and maybe even getting some professional help, right? It's just sort of get to the point where it blew up. I think I did have a breakdown. If I look back, it was just like, I've had enough. You know, I've had enough. Can't do this anymore. This is ridiculous. And of course, you know, I started having suicidal thoughts. And I mean, I didn't plan anything, but certainly, you know, stuff was going through my head. You know, after a while, it got to a point where I was just like, you know, I mean, crying myself to sleep. My wife was fantastic. She would cry me to sleep, and you know, we just always said, look, we're going to get through this together. You know, we're going through some tough times. We're going through it, but we're going to get through this. And so, and that's one of the things with my relationship with Katina. That was one thing that we just took off the table straight away, was like, divorce is not an option. And I think when you do that, that gives you the freedom to be able to say, okay, we're going to work through this. It's going to be messy, but there's no risk of divorce. There's no risk of splitting up. And so for me, that was key, because I think had we not taken that off the table, then there was always a risk of that happening. And so there was one night, Rob, where I guess it came to a crescendo, if you like, where I just said, I can't do this anymore. And I went to the back of the house and I just fell on my knees. And I think that's, you know, having the faith that my parents instilled in me, and this belief that there was a God, there was someone greater, there was someone who loved me. I didn't feel much love at that point, but just falling on my knees, and I just looked up, and I don't think I shouted, but I think I just said, I have had enough. I pointed and I said, I have had enough. I can't do this anymore. You need to do something. Otherwise, this is going to end badly. And I had one of the most amazing experiences I've ever had. I just felt this immediate peace, this immediate comfort, this immediate warmth. And it was almost like this God who I believed was up there was all of a sudden giving me a hug, was all of a sudden more real than he'd ever been. You know, I believed in him, he'd been there, and yes, I loved him, and I'd sort of had some connection, but this was just the most realist, I know that's not a word, but the most real thing I've ever engaged in. And at that moment, I'd gone from complete despair to complete peace in an instant. Now, that didn't continue. I can tell you that was a journey, and you know, it wasn't as though, things have automatically changed and fantastic and yippity-doo-dah. No, that wasn't the case. But there was an instant there that had just changed, and I now realize that okay, there's a reason I'm going through this, and I'm going to walk this journey, and I'm going to find out why. And this God who I felt has just visited me, I want to know him even more than I've ever known him before, because there was just some things that he just put in my heart, right? I just, in that instant, there was just, it dropped in my heart that you are where I want you to be.
Really, you felt that?
I felt that. I felt that. It was like,
Wow.
as I said, from an instant, it was just like, I'm floundering, I'm all over the place, I can't do this anymore. Two, I'm exactly where I need to be. Like, amazing, absolutely amazing.
Wow.
And the other thing he dropped in my heart was, in your weakness, that's when you are the strongest. Why? Because in my weakness right then, I'd reached out to him who was the strongest.
Yeah.
Like, it was just an amazing epiphany, amazing experience. And, I mean, I've got goosebumps just sharing it. Sometimes I get really emotional just from joy of sharing such an amazing experience. And that just changed, for me, that changed everything. For me, that changed my faith. It changed the way I viewed God. My view of him became different. I just, he loved on me, and I just wanted to love him and just to get to know him more.
Wow.
And it was pretty cool.
So, as you say, I mean, the process of working with depression is an ongoing thing then. But I guess that's something that you can grab a hold of. That's an anchor point. Like your relationship with your wife was an anchor point.
Correct. Look, I think it's always a good reminder for me. They talk about the black dogs always snapping at your heels. And I don't think it's something that's completely gone. It's something, if I'm not careful, I do sometimes, dip. And I need to be careful. I need to make sure that I have downtime, that I have time away, that I have time with my wife. We're on a bit of a working holiday at the moment. We're up in the Gold Coast, and I'm doing work, but for me, I need to be sort of getting away and having a change of scenery. I'm fortunate I can work, a little bit remotely. So the reminder of that is important. We constantly talk with Katina about, now what we're doing, and I'm a lot more open and vulnerable with Katina, and with others about the journey now. And I figured that if it can't benefit others, then it's a bit of a waste. If others can't be encouraged and get something out of my journey, then I've benefited from it, but I want as many others to benefit from it. And that's the reason why 3P was born. I want people to prosper in those three areas, because I was affected in those three areas. And so I don't want this to happen to others, or if it does, we want to minimize the damage, or help people and help them be armed and prepared for it. Because if you live long enough, stuff's going to happen.
Yeah.
No doubt about that.
Okay. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for sharing about that. I mean, that's really encouraging. And I'm sure there are many men on the call who can identify with lots of that. I want to remind the men that we have a time for questions soon. So we're going to use the raised hand function, or if you're in the boardroom in Sydney, you know what to do there. So think of your questions for Ziggy. You said if you live long enough, stuff's going to happen, and that happened to you, right? So you sort of around this time, you had another series of challenges, and that came about by going to a wedding in Canada. Can you tell us what happened there?
I think there are plenty of people who are going to find this funny, because being of Greek culture, you're meant to be dancing, right? But if I go back to the church that I was at, that was very conservative, that there was no dancing at weddings, there was no alcohol, there was, as I said, we didn't have a TV. I mean, people in the church did, but my parents were extra strict. And so anyway, in 2010, we had a friend from the church that we were attending, found a girl online. Anyway, they connected. and here is this wedding is going to happen in Canada. And I said to Katina, I said, look, let's just have a trip to the US. We'll go around the US and we'll go to the wedding, which we did. And so, of course, like most normal weddings, there's some dancing and there's a celebration. And of course, we danced and celebrated. And I got back, and of course, I was pulled up because I had various positions in the church. I was Sunday school teacher and doing a whole range of things, which I really enjoyed. And I got called up. I got called up and said, "Listen, we heard that you danced over in a wedding in Canada when we know the view, it's a sin, and the view of the church on this, and we need you to get if you want to continue in your role, we will need you to get up in front of the church and ask for forgiveness, and tell us you won't do it again." And I'm going through this change, right? So this is all happening in my life. So this other thing comes along, and it's just like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Yeah, nah, to use an Aussie colloquialism, And I just said, no, not going to happen. Oh, well, you're going to have to resign. No, I'm not resigning. I'm not resigning. You can get rid of me. Anyway, I don't want to bag out sort of the previous church or anything like that. But it was like, really? And that was part of my journey of understanding that, hey, this is not about religion. This is not about the do's and the don'ts. This is not about, and so that was the end of our journey there. And, we moved on to another church there that, is focused on building every person's relationship with God. And I think that's the key, not what you can and can't do, not what religion is or isn't about. Religion has caused so many wars. We can see what's going on now, and so this was just about focus, keep the main thing, the main thing. And so, yeah, Rob, that was an interesting time for a Greek to be told, you can't dance.
Because you'd been at that church for decades, right?
I grew up there. Yeah, I grew up there.
And
it was a real community. It's a great community. It was a great place to raise a family, but it was very, very closed. But everyone trusted each other. It was great, and there was certainly it was a great church in the sense that I think for the period of time that we were there, it did its bit in my story and in my journey, right?
Yeah, that must have been so difficult with your family, with your father in particular.
It was difficult because mum and dad, and as I said, Dad was probably the strictest out of anyone in there at the church, right? So Dad loves God and loves Jesus so much that he's prepared to sacrifice anything, right? And he always said to me growing up, Jesus sacrificed himself on the cross for us. There cannot be anything that we shouldn't sacrifice for him, and that's great to understand that, but Dad took that literally. And so his intentions were good. And so as a result, he was seen in the church as the strictest. He had the strictest stuff going on in his family. And so as a result, we were the strictest kids. And so I never went to any of the kids' birthday parties, even a church where there was no dancing and nothing, I wasn't even allowed to go there. So it did cause some tension. It was difficult with mum and dad for a period of time, because they said, look, this is where we've grown up. You've grown up here. You can't leave. You can't leave. Where are you going to go? Because there was this belief that, we have got it right here. It's great. It's holy. It's, and if you go out there, you're going to be tainted and it's going to, you're gone. And of course that was never going to be the case. And it's not the case. So there was a period of time where it was difficult. It was very, very difficult. And the tension was like, I'm going, yeah, this is not what it's meant to be. It's not what it. But look, that passed, and mum and dad, we had a great relationship, and mum and dad see us now flourishing. They see our kids now flourishing. We've got a 23 and a 21-year-old, and they're just happy.
Oh,
They even came to the new church when our daughter was getting baptized, and I remember asking mum, when we were going over for lunch over there. I said, how'd you like it? She goes, oh, too loud for me.
I find it interesting that Jesus' first recorded miracle was to bring the wine to the wedding.
Yeah, that's right. Ironic, isn't it?
Wow. And okay, well, that's fantastic. It's wonderful that you've reconciled, that you've got a great relationship with your
Yeah.
parents. And you mentioned your health is something you monitor and you're conscious of, which is good. What do you think of the idea that God has a plan or a purpose for each of us individually, that it's not just this concept that God wants us to live in a certain way and have certain relationships, but actually, you know, you've talked about things in your life, including what you do for work, that you align to his purpose for you. Is that something, am I overstating that, or is that something you really believe for
No,
us?
not at all. You're not overstating it. It's I think there couldn't be anything more important. I think what I then embarked on, and this is important because my depression, everything that I went through, for me, I believe was a reset. You know, when you used to, I don't know, we don't do it as much now, but you used to Control Alt Delete on the computer, you know, and it resets and any bugs or whatever starts up again. Well, for me, that was it. For me, that was it. And so it gave me an opportunity to start from scratch. It gave me an opportunity for me and for God to start with a new canvas. And so what I then was asking God is I believe, I'd say to him, I said, I believe you've made me unique. I know that. I believe you've made every person unique with unique gifts and unique talents. I want to know what they are, and I want to use them for the benefit of others. And I want to use them so that others will come to know you in the same way that I have. I think that's one of the most important. So, you know, when we talk about the 3Ps, you know, we have ultimately my aim is to get to the 4th P with clients, called the silent P, or this is the ulterior motive, if you like, coming out now.
This isn't on the website.
No, this is the 4th P, but the 4th P is your purpose. And we want to be able to get to that discussion with clients at some point, because clients are engaging with us, they're entrusting us with their finances. And so if we're doing that and we're helping them with relationships and we're helping them with their, you know, with the healthy living, then the next discussion is talking about, well, what's your purpose? And that purpose could be anything, but that purpose discussion is going to lead somewhere. And as I said, my aim is for people to know what their gifts and talents are and get into their, stay in their lane. Because one of the things that I think, you know, growing up, and I've had to battle with as well, and is looking at other people's lanes, looking at other people, and looking at other people, and people that say were ahead of me, or either had more money than me, or had more of this or more of that, and I would look towards them, and you know, that would be some envy and jealousy, and that is just poison. And if I then looked at others who weren't where I was, it was just like pride, a bit of pride. It's like, you know, I'm better than them. And so these were two things that I just thought, I got to get rid of this stuff. And so that depression, that reset, that understanding then was, I've got unique gifts and talents that no one else has. I'm at a point in history that no one else is, with my unique gifts and talents, and every single person on this earth is in the same position. So I want to know what my unique gifts and talents are, and I'm going to run my lane and run as hard and as fast as I can. And I'm going to cheer on the others next to me rather than looking at theirs.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, gentlemen, if you have questions and you're online, please use the raised hand function, and you can ask your question to Ziggy. I've got a couple of questions from the room. In all of your experiences, there's a question about how has that led to what sort of father you have become and husband you have become? So I totally understand the very loving environment of your family growing up, but many of us don't want to be our fathers, but we find we are in all manner of ways. How have you approached fatherhood?
Yeah. Look, when I was going through my depression, 2012, towards the end of 2012, I said that 2013 was going to be my year. I'm going to become a better father. And look, I wasn't a bad father or a bad husband or anything like that. But I'm going to become a better father, a better husband. I'm going to work out what I'm doing from a career perspective. I'm going to find out what my gifts and talents are. I'm going to go for it. And so I'd like to think that I have been, and my relationship with Katina is a lot different. It's your Greek male, in your Greek male culture, it can be very overpowering, right? And I think for the first 10 years, I probably, tried to change Katina.
That works.
Ridiculous. Yeah, it didn't work. But to her credit, I mean, she's just an amazing woman. But so I tried to change her, and then I realized that it's not my job to try and change her, nor should she change me. We don't need changing. We just need molding together.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things that I've learned. I think I've learned to be more patient, more open, less demanding, less overpowering. The kids, there were times where I think I was just, my dad was, as I said, very strong character, very big leader, but very, very strong in opinions, and there's almost no compromise and no debate on a lot of things, And so for a period of time, I was like that. I was like that with Katina. I was like that with the kids. And I've had to process that. I've had to ask also God for healing on that, because when I used to think about that, I used to just shudder, and it just used to get me, because there were times where I just think, man, I haven't been a good father. I could have done things, differently. And I know there's probably guys in here, thinking the same thing as well. And, I think we all, with our best intentions, we've all done the best we could. I think we regret certain things, a lot of things that we've done in the past, and we've all made mistakes, and we all look back and we think, I could have done it better. And that's the reality of it. I think there's no two ways about that. But what I've found is, I think, this relationship with him has taken me on this healing process. And I've just said, you know what? I just want to be, I know you made me. I know you made me. You want to give me the gifts and talents. So I just want to be the best father and the best husband I can be. And I haven't been in the past. So just mold me, change me, I'm open to it. And that's been a battle as well, right? Because there's something we battle with. We battle with our will. We battle with, being open to him. But the journey has certainly meant that I'm a different person today. I'm a different father. I'm a different husband for sure than I was, even 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And so we've been married, 28 years this year.
Lovely.
So, yeah.
Good. On a different tact, in this sort of economic environment, do you have, now I know this can't be general advice given to over a webcast.
Disclaimer.
What do you think about wealth creation in the current climate, given everything that's going on?
What's interesting, Rob, is when you've been around long enough, you see all the cycles that economies, share markets, property markets go through. And if I look back, I think every 10 years, there's something that goes bizarrely wrong. When I first got into accounting and tax, it was 1990, and we had the recession we had to have. And then in the late 90s, there was the Russian ruble crisis and a whole range of things. I think there was a bit of an Asian crisis in there. And of course, we had the tech wreck, and then we had the GFC, And then, what else have we had? Oh, we've had obviously, stuff happening now, stuff happening the last sort of couple of years. And so and I've been doing a lot of seminars over that time as well. And it's interesting because you talk about, I asked the question, I've always asked the question, what is the biggest wealth? What is the biggest wealth driver? And people either go property or shares. And I ask, okay, well, who thinks property is overpriced? But I've been doing this for the last 30 years. And every time you ask it, oh, yeah, it's overpriced, it's going to crash. Share market, yeah, overpriced is going to crash. And, we've seen adjustments and we've seen, things go down and everything. And you know what? I think you can be too cute with these things. If you try and time, I'm sure there's a lot of finance guys in there. Everyone's heard about the time of the market and all that sort of thing. But you know what? If you've got, from a planning perspective now as an advisor, I say to clients, look, I'm not going to be the type of advisor that's going to say, oh, we've got a fund that's done, 7.2%. The other one over there did 7.1. That's not me. You're not going to get me like that. This is me. And if you want to be a part of us, this is what we're about. We're 3P. This is what we stand for. This is what we believe. This is the journey that we're going to take you on. And when it comes to your wealth and financial independence, if you've got time on your hands, we'll put together a strategy. Yes, we'll review it every year. We'll let you know if something urgently needs. But otherwise, you know what? We'll put the strategy in place. You just keep on doing what we're saying. And you know what? You'll be fine and you'll be financially independent. And we want you to go and enjoy your life. And let's do some stuff together that's really meaningful. We'll take care of the finances. There's no doubt. And so I think we can. I think this is one of the benefits of hindsight as you get older, right? Because you've got the years of experiences. You're not looking as short term.
Yeah.
Because things will pass. Stuff's been happening in the Middle East for millennia. And look, it could get worse. It could go away. It's like it doesn't matter. Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. So I don't know. I hope that answers sort of.
So get involved, right? Life be in it.
Life be in it. Absolutely. Whatever it is, just suck the most out of life. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to do that now, and just. I want, my aim is for when people to meet me to leave with a smile. To leave with a smile and just say, you know what? I've been loved on, not because I'm special, because I just want to love on people. I just want them to walk away having lifted them up, having pumped up their tires and having said, you know what? You're good. Keep on going.
Brilliant.
Keep on going. Yeah, we all got stuff. Just keep on going. You're valuable. You've got gifts. You've got talents. Find them and just walk in it.
Nice. Maybe the final question back to your experience with depression. Looking back, do you think there was one or a couple of signs that maybe I'm wondering if there are men in the call who are on a sort of journey that sort of similar to the one you faced, and was there sort of a sign that you missed, or that was a sort of tipping point that led to you getting into that depression?
Good, very good question. I think there were things that I didn't address. There were things that I should have addressed earlier, be it my relationship with Katina, be it whatever else was going on. And I do that better these days, not to the extent that I think I should be, but I'm getting better at that. But one of the mistakes that I made, I think, which led to it, was not addressing things and letting things fester. I think for me that was a key thing, Rob. And when you let things fester, you think it's dealt with, or you think that it doesn't have an impact on you. But if it's not dealt with and closed off, then it festers and it builds up in your mind. As I said, if you're a bit like me, sort of builds up in your mind and it's looping, right? And that loop just goes faster and faster until it just explodes. And I think that's what happened with me. So my encouragement would be to the guys there and I don't always get this right, but I try and, is just like, okay, let's have a chat about this, right? And let's talk about this. This is not quite right. And I think people like, my wife and the kids are adults now, right? So we've had to have some discussions, and I've had to have some. None of us like confrontation, right? But once you do it, and you're having a chat about something, and you're doing it with love, and you're going, hey, I just want to sort this out. I love you, and I love our relationship, and I just want to sort this out, and I just feel that there's something not quite right. Can we just sort of work through this? You're going to get a great reaction most of the time from the other side. And at the end of it, even if it's not sorted, that step is just, it's liberating. So for me, I never used to do that. And so eventually things just blow up. So I think that's very important. And look, I had I went, I saw a psychologist many times, as part of that process. And I didn't want to admit that I was depressed. I didn't want to admit that I was sad, or that but there was this sort of prolonged sort of sadness. And Katina kept on telling me, for goodness sake, talk. And I was close with my brother, right? Very close. I didn't even want to tell him. And just tell your brother, until one night I just broke, just absolutely broke. And I mean, there were nights where I just jump into a car and just go for a drive, and awful thoughts would come to my head. I mean, there was one night where I went into, we live in Sunshine, the western suburbs of Melbourne, right? And it's a much better place than it used to be growing up. But it's the type of place, probably these days, that if you want trouble, you'll find it, and so it was about 10:30 at night, and I drove down into the middle part of Sunshine, and there was, I went, it was about 1 kilometre. I parked the car at one end of the Sunshine. There's no one around, right? Parked one end of the Sunshine, and I said, I'm going to walk to the train station. And if there's anyone that tries to mug me, I'm going to kill someone tonight. I've just, my fists were clenched, and I've never had a fight in my life. That's not me, right? My fists were clenched, and I walked from one end of Sunshine. I went to the train station. I was looking for trouble. I was so angry. I was angry with God. I think I was angry with my life. I was depressed. I was just like, and thank God I didn't find anyone. Thank God no one came.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going to get on someone that was in it, but I was looking for druggies in particular. I just thought, I'm going to give a serve to the people that I think, at the time, mistakenly deserve it. Anyway, and I came back, and so, but that's how things blew up. And as I said, I'm not that type of person. So coming back to, I'd just say, I think address things, attend to things, don't let them fester, because they'll only blow up and come out in another way.
Well, I rejoice in the you that you are today, which seems a million miles from a fist clenched man. So Ziggy, I want to really thank you for joining us today and sharing your story, which is amazing, and so encouraging in many ways, so many ways. We're going to have a chance next week, many of us, to reflect on your story and how God has worked in your life, and how you've responded to that and your family. And we do that in small groups all around the country. So
Awesome.
If you're not in a small group, reach out, and you'll get an email today following the call, with information about that. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining today. I would just like to now close with a very short prayer. Father God, we do thank you for the fact that you love on us. Thank you for the way you've worked in Ziggy's life, and the way he can now reflect your love to others in his work and in his other parts of his life. Thanks for his family and the love that they showed him. Thank you that you love us all in that way, and help us to realize that as we go about our day today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Good on you. Thanks, Ziggy.